Okay, so first of all, I'd like to introduce myself. My name is Dmytro Kuzmenko. I am the CEO of Ukrainian Venture Capital and Private Equity Association. And here's my colleague, my partner, Charles Tine. Do I pronounce it right? Do I pronounce it correct?
Yes, Dmytro.
Awesome.
It starts to be good.
Awesome. So we, with Charles, we are going to be today's mentors, leaders, hosts, and so on. Now I turn on the recording and let's kick off, okay?
Recording in progress.
Awesome. So, I'm happy to see all of you here at this first Canadian-Ukrainian Investment Ecosystems Meetup. The main purpose of this event is to become closer to each other, to disclosure some interesting details, to find possible ways and possible points of future cooperation. And the main thing, I believe the main thing today is to let our Canadian colleagues know more about the current situation at the Ukrainian investment ecosystem, at the market, and maybe to answer some crucial questions. I think so. I would like to give the floor to Charles for his introduction words, please.
Yeah, hi, good morning, everyone. It's a pleasure to have you all here. First of all, I'm introducing myself. I'm Charles Tine. I'm an entrepreneur in the tech industry, and I've been engaged in Ukraine for ever the beginning of this full-scale invasion. I founded a humanitarian NGO on the ground, and I'm now going back and forth to Ukraine to manage our operations on the ground. I don't want to take too long because we've got an introduction of Kim Furlong, the CEO of CUCC, which is the mirror organization as UVCA, but in Canada. And I know that Kim has got a meeting at 10:15, so it's very kind of her to take the floor now. Just a couple of things. You can use the chat. I will try to kind of moderate the chat and get the questions to the right speakers. And please, when you start to take to speak the first time, at least please introduce yourself so that anyone knows who you are and what you do. Kim, please.
Good morning, everyone. Thank you for having me. And I am sorry that I only have a couple minutes today. I've got about a week and 2 days before the break for me in my last board meeting of the year. So everything has been condensed in these last few days of meetings before I go and put the computer away and take a break for the holidays. You'll have David Kornacki from my team presenting to you and spending time with you today. And you'll have also some of our members participate on some of the panels. And I hope that the conversations will be fruitful and that it will be, as Charles said, the beginning of a conversation and a collaboration that is more sustained. I have to say, from a couple of years back now, Andrzej, I think his last name is Kolodziuk, you're the chair of the UVCA, and I see him just right timing.
Yes.
Yes. Nice to see you. We've been talking.
Nice to see you, Kim.
We've been talking, we've met in person, we've had sustained conversations about trying to bring attention and to put a spotlight on the resilience of the investments in the Ukraine. And even at the beginning of the conflict, how many entrepreneurs and VC funds repositioned themselves out of Poland and continued, and the business continued to grow, and the potential that is there. So it is not lost on me what is possible, and that these dialogues are important because as everyone knows in venture capital, it's about relationships, and it's about the right timing and the right partnerships and the right opportunity coming to two partners at the same time to find a company to seed and then to grow. So I hope that this first edition is not the last, and I promise that the next time you do this, I will have more time to spend with the group. And I'm going to stay on until 10:15 when my next Zoom call. So I'm going to pass it back to you, I believe, Charles. And I really wish everyone a really good days of conversation. And I believe you're on mute, Charles.
Thank you. Yeah, Charles is muted, but I would like to thank you for your time, for your support, Charles. It's your turn.
I was saying the same. So I would just wanted to introduce the next topic, which is I think you spoke, Kim, about resilience. That's all about what's happening in the country, and I've been in Lviv for IT Arena a couple of, beginning of October, and I was just impressed by the ecosystem, by the startup ecosystem, by the dynamism there, by the number of people. It was 3 days, it was about 3,000 people, and I met many American, Canadians, Europeans. I mean, everybody was, a lot of people were coming to see what's happening, and all the discussions I had was, were the same. Everybody has been impressed by the quality of the startup contest, etc. I think that to put things more in the context of what's happening in Ukraine, and you spoke, Kim, about the ecosystem market and the VC market. I think that now we turn to Andrei Kolodiuk, who is the chairman of UVCA, to tell us a bit more about the dynamism with figures. I mean, just one thing that I noted when I was at the Canadian Ukraine Chamber of Commerce event in Toronto a couple of weeks ago was one figure, is that the GDP growth of Ukraine this year is expected to be plus 5%. And that only figure, is everything about what's happening in the country. So, Andrei, maybe you can take the floor now.
Sure. Thank you, Charles. And thank you, Kim, for all your support. Number one, yes, indeed, we had a number of conversations before. And in terms of the market, first of all, the UVCA have grown by 9 members last year, number one. Secondly, none of our members actually stopped investing in Ukraine or continue investing in Ukraine, which is basically shows you the confidence of the investors, and one third of our members, the international VCs, that still continue to invest in Ukraine. In terms of the growth number, I will not go there for the sake of time, because the UVCA research is available for all the participants. So basically, we've done the recent 5 quarters in the world research that shows that 200 deals, 2 unicorns, exits. So the market is still performing. So, and this is very good news, and not only on the early stage, but also on the growth stage. And how we operate, or how we build the ecosystem, that's the reason why it's so resilient, because we are welcome to co-invest the international funds. Just for the matter of fact, out of the 2,000 startups that have been invested for the last 9 years, and by the way, we've been in the war, as you know, from 2013, we had more than 300 the international funds that co-invested with the Ukrainian GPs. So basically, it shows you the deals are happening, the pipeline of deals is also happening, so it's also very important. I also want to share with you something that we've been working on, and hopefully it also will be available for the institutional investors. So, and that is, that the war insurance is provided already by a number of the states for the real sector projects. And hopefully you will hear that in the next week when the European Union will endorse 50 billion program for Ukraine, where 8 billion so-called investment institutional framework will go exactly to the guarantees or to the DFIs to invest in the Ukrainian funds now, not waiting for the post-war. So basically, this is an instrument that will actually ensure also the institutional investors or private investors to invest in Ukrainian funds now. Secondly, the deals are happening as we spoke already today. So UVCA have the matching project platform in order for you, whatever your interest is, to look at the pipeline which is coming from the Ukrainian entrepreneurs that are based globally in Ukraine or outside of Ukraine. So we have to keep track of those. So you have access by contacting UVCA to see exactly the projects that back up our members, or not back up yet or invested yet, but you will have access to all the pipeline. And believe me, it's very tremendous or extensive, the number of the investments. So it's number one. Number two, And this is what we actually promote through the different organization. And this is something we come up with the Luxembourg Private Equity Association with, which is called the Ukraine 1% Investment Pledge. Why it's important? You know, like we have an ESG as a kind of policy, but the investors that are, let's say, invested in sustainable development, et cetera, but this basically applies to Ukraine. So what is the Ukraine 1% pledge? Basically, it's an allocation of just 1% from any investor in the world, meaning institutional, private, etc., just to pledge just 1% of that capital to invest in Ukrainian founders. Number one, of course, it's for profit, it's not a donation, but we all know that 1% will not damage your return overall, number one. Secondly, how you can implement this pledge, okay? You can invest directly and you can come out to us and we will share the deal pipeline with you. Secondly, you can also ask your current GPs, and I'm now referring to the CVCA and their GP fund managers, that the LPs can tell them, you know what, I'm investing in you $10 million as an LP or less, just how about 100K, just 100K, just 1% of the total amount will go to the Ukrainian investment. Maybe the people already in Canada or in Europe or whatever, but you will just implement it together as a co-investment vehicle with us. And if your GP for some reason will say, you know what, I don't know what to do with this, then you can direct in this, invest in 17 funds that are currently raising, and it's going to be more than that. And you also will try to invest in the fund they're currently raising, because basically they are eventually investing in the startups. And the last option is to allocate your pledge to the fund of funds, which is managed by the fund of fund manager. So all of these instruments are available. I believe that we're going to share with you this 1% pledge, which was prepared by the Luxembourg Private Association together with us. And then you will have something proper for your investors to look at and say, you know what, I want to support not just Ukraine, but I want to invest. And this is the way how you're going to do this. This is basically it in terms of how you can, as I said, the best help to Ukraine is co-investments. And I mean it because it's happening. And this is how you can co-invest with us and do both, do good and also to make your profits for the sake of all of us. That's all on my side. And if you have any questions, I would be happy to answer them.
Any questions? I would like to add, by the end of this year, we're going to have 10 new members. Right now, we're working on it, and we're going to have 10 new members in this year, in 2023. And as Andrei said, currently we're working on, as always, we're working on attracting more investments to Ukrainian market, to Ukrainian projects. And this tool is pretty unique, but it allows to invest in Ukraine with any amount of money. Just make this pledge. I guess Andrei is moving to the gate. Andrei is at the airport. So I believe we can move on. Charles, what do you think? You are muted once again.
Yep, sorry. Yeah, I was saying that you have the agenda, by the way, at the top of the chat box, so don't hesitate to refer to that. Dmitro, unless you have some more facts or figures to share with us about, you know, the number of deals, the what's happening, you know, what was happening during the full-scale invasions, you know, at least the past couple of years. Maybe okay. You can. We got a bit of time now, so we you know, maybe you can share some facts. Again, you know, there are some surprises in the figures for country at war, and maybe, you know, people would be happy to know more about that.
Okay, understand. I don't think we can surprise you or impress you with some big figures, with some big deals. I can share with you our current research on the Ukrainian venture market, but in general figures, for last year and the first half of this year, we had almost 200 deals, and I mean venture deals. Aggregate investments attracted in these deals with the disclosed values is about $881 million. And we have about 23 deals with undisclosed values, so we're not able to provide you with more details on this. But and other figures, we have 700% total increase in value of Ukrainian startups over 5 years, comparing from 2017 until 2022. And in the CE region, in 2022, well, during last year, Ukraine's rank in value of venture financing in the CE region was 6th place. Regarding the private equity deals, we had a few interesting deals. Just a second, I'm scrolling. So, direct investments and M&A market for private equity deals, based on information we got from open sources and from the market actors. We had 52 public deals and more than 500 non-public deals in direct investments. In general figures, it's about $436 million aggregate investments of public deal. And in shadow deal value, sorry, we live in Ukraine. In shadow deal value, I mean in deals with undisclosed details, in these deals, it was estimated as a $1 billion in direct investments and M&A market. Something like this. Anyway, I'm going to share this information with you to provide you with this opportunity to review this market overview and find more interesting details on this matter. And now I believe we can, we're a little bit ahead of time, but anyway, we can pass the floor to David Karnatsky.
Yeah, thank you.
David?
Yeah, really
awesome.
thank you to the small projects team at UVCA for hosting and inviting me to speak. So for context, my name is David Kornacki. I'm the Director of Data and Product at the CVCA. And really what my responsibility is to lead the management and development of CVCA Intelligence. And it's a proprietary database containing all of Canadian venture capital and private equity data. We collect our data first primarily from our venture capital and private equity firms that are actively investing in Canada. We've built relationships with about 366 firms that are actively investing in Canada. This is global investors as well. And we make sure that we have the most comprehensive look at what is going on in the Canadian marketplace and all of the trends and insights across the industry. And I wanted to give everyone a little bit of a breakdown of what has been going on in Canada over the last few years. So I've been with the CVCA for a number of years now. I joined the CVCA in 2017, and it's interesting because I've only been here for relatively, in terms of like an economic market, this isn't the longest time. 6 years isn't you don't really see many cycles in 6 years, but we have seen a very interesting activity over the last 6 years, things that we haven't seen before based on our data that goes back as far as 2013. So I'm really fortunate to see the cycle that we've seen so far. And to give you some context, when I first joined at the CVCA, really what we saw in Canada was really investment in different hubs across Canada, and mainly Toronto and Montreal, which is something that has changed. So, for example, Ontario and Quebec alone accounted for 70% of all investment deals that were completed in 2017, and 82%, 70% of all invested dollars, and then 82% of all deals in 2017. So really, the lion's share of all investment activity was just in these two cities, in these two provinces. But now we're seeing it all spread across all of the entire country. So, for example, now in 2023, so far, what we've seen, they only accounted for 63% of all deals and 69% of investment value. And that's not to say that the activity in these two provinces has dropped. It's contrary. It's actually has risen. We're seeing investment levels that are record highs over the last 3 years. But it's just that the rest of Canada is now having investable startups, and we're seeing a lot more focus on these companies across Canada to see these unicorns popping up across all sectors. We have different hubs across Canada. Obviously, the prairies, which for us is where a lot of the farmland in the center of Canada. There's a lot of ag tech startups and clean tech startups starting up, and it's been very exciting to see across Canada. So, for example, in Alberta alone, the activity since 2017 to now has grown more than 5 times in terms of number of dollars invested and 15 times of number of deals. And that's not even accounting for the full year of 2023. This is comparing the 2017 full year versus 2023 as of Q3. So it's incredible to see this growth in just Alberta alone. And a lot of the other provinces are witnessing record highs as well. New Brunswick as well, record high. Nova Scotia, all across Canada is growing, which is very exciting. And to give you some context of what we were experiencing since 2017, we had a term called a mega deal in 2017, which is any deal that's above $50 million. And in 2017, we saw 16 mega deals, which was a record at that time. And then in 2021, which was our peak activity, we saw 78. So it's a considerable change. There have been 27 in 2023 already. In 2021, we actually were considering to add another category because mega deal was too small. It seemed like we were thinking of adding a different category. I think we were thinking of mammoth deal because anything $200 million plus were so common in 2021. But that has dropped since then. But I'll get to that later on in my notes here. What's interesting as well, since 2017, we've seen the Canadian market has become considerably more robust. There's a lot of VC investors really targeting these early stages, this is pre-seed, seed stages, at these very crucial growth funding as portions and stages of these companies to give them that fuel to really grow their companies intentionally and to really grow the companies considerably at those times. So that's really exciting to see the investment to shift to earlier and early stages, which used to be at the Series A, Series B. That was the kind of the sweet spot for Canada, but we're seeing earlier and earlier stages, which is exciting. And for context, and I'll send a link after this, so you can see all of our market overview reports and also explore our database for more data if you would like to see what's going on in Canada. But just a snapshot of where we're at now, where we've so far seen 494 deals as of Q3 and $5.4 billion invested. But that is a drop from the last 3 years. So in 2020, we saw obviously a drop because of COVID, and we saw people pulling back. But in 2021, we saw investor shift, and we saw a lot of dollars being invested in all of the companies that were put on pause in 2020. And we saw an explosion of activity, which I don't think we will see for a number of years. And that's mainly because we saw a lot of funding coming in at these incredibly high valuations. So we saw a record high with 846 deals and $15.7 billion invested for the entire year. But then we saw a pullback, obviously, with everything going on in 2022. And now we are seeing a pullback, but it's a return to what we should have been expecting in as pre-pandemic levels. So we're fairly confident with, for a number of reasons. We're seeing a lot more Canadian investors investing in Canada and a lot more focus on growing with intention rather than growing at all costs, and making sure that all of your KPIs make sense, and everything isn't just to increase funding and funding for funding's sake. It's more so growing with intention and growing, fueling the companies that are capital efficient and decreasing their burn, which is great, because now we can see these companies that are here for the long term. They're not here for just a big exciting explosion and then pulling back. So we're excited to see that the return to normalcy, we've been saying. I'll just jump into sectors, and again, you can see all of these details on our website. But ICT is still very high. It's still accounting for basically 50% of all deals and almost 60% of all funding so far in Q3, and that's pretty in line with what we were seeing pre-pandemic as well. There's a lot of increase into AI companies, with even Cohere.ai, which is a open AI competitor in Toronto, which raised almost $400 million in a Series C this year, which is exciting. We are really excited to see all of the trends that we've been seeing in clean tech activity in Canada. And we think Canada is really becoming a clean tech hub, and it's really going to be a global leader in clean tech. And we're expecting this to continue growing. We've already surpassed record highs as of Q3 this year than we've ever seen, and it's also with the most dollars invested that we've ever seen. The Canadian government is also funding a lot of initiatives to support clean tech and clean tech investing. So we're very excited to see what will happen in the next 5 to 10 years as these initiatives are really, we can see them in the data. Agribusiness, as I mentioned earlier, in the prairies, there's a lot of ag tech companies which also thriving. 232 million across 37 deals this year, and it's also on track to set new records for deal value and volume of investments. So we're excited to see that. And finally, I'll also speak to why we think that we've kind of returned to normal, or at least a more sense of normal in terms of Canadian private capital investing, is we've also started to see exits. These exits are now primarily in life sciences. We saw 3 major exits, and you can see more details again in our data. But we've seen exit activity pick up with also the first VC-backed IPO that we have seen since 18 months. So it's exciting to see that. We saw some really big exits with Chinook Therapeutics and Versago. So it's exciting to see what the exit activity, if it's going to continue into 2024. But yeah, just to summarize, I just touched on a lot of points, and if you have any questions, please let me know, or you can reach out to me directly as well. Investment activity is growing across all of Canada. We're very excited to see that it's no longer the investment hubs of Toronto, Montreal, Vancouver. We're seeing investment activity all across Canada. And then there's the growth in clean tech, agribusiness are exciting to see as well, and also just the resurgence of exits in Canada. We really are thinking optimistically on the Canadian venture capital market. And that's it for me. If I'd like to
Thank you.
pass that along.
Thank you, David. Thank you so much for this information, for this highlights, Charles?
Yes, I've got a question for David. I mean, I come from Europe, as you can hear, and I discovered more on the BA side than the BC side, but I discovered that the Canadian investments are somewhat much more local centrics. I mean, North American centrics than in Europe, of course, because of the structure of the countries in Europe. Can you tell us a bit about the appetite of Canadian funds for international investment? When I say international, it's not USA, it's the rest of the world.
Yeah, so our mostly, like, that's a great point, Charles, and thank you for bringing that up. Mostly what we see Canadian investors, they really look to grow in Canada and really grow their portfolio in Canada first, and then they start to branch out. And like you mentioned, primarily that is to the US, just because globally geographically that just makes it's easier to go to the States versus going to Europe. But I think the next step after that, it's straight to Europe. That's what we are seeing. But as you mentioned, I think with Canada, we are a maturing VC market. So I think as these funds grow, and you've already seen this in like Innovia Capital, Georgian, there's a few others as well. As these funds mature, they do start to branch out and start to open offices in Europe as well, and they start to branch out that way. But I think we're going to see more of that for the next like 5 to 10 years as the industry matures and these firms mature. But right now, it's typically if they begin to branch out, it's typically to the States first, and then they go abroad from there.
Okay, thanks. That's a subject that we're going to rediscuss later on with the open discussion with the Canadian people that we have here around the table. Is there any other question for David?
I have a question.
Yeah, go ahead. Or I'll go ahead. I don't have any questions for David, but I mean, love to hear from Charles or Dimitri on the Ukrainian context. So first, I'm JC Bork. I work with Ontario Teachers Pension Plan. We're a $250 billion fund out of Toronto. Global investors. I work with a asset class called TVG. That's Teachers Venture Growth. So we deploy in late stage venture growth equity companies. We write checks from 50 to 250 million. We have about a $10 billion portfolio. We have offices Europe, North America, Asia as well. So we're Canadian investors in the tech space. Interested to understand from any of the Ukrainian individuals or people associated with the ecosystem. One, how do you look at the types of innovation that is coming out of the country, given the circumstances and given sort of the need for innovation, particularly in defense, maybe logistics? What are the subsectors that are really sort of taking off? How is the sort of interesting to know how the sort of the company formation and investment process is taking place in a war zone. That's obviously interesting for us to understand. So a couple questions we'd love to hear about, and if you don't have that information, we'd love to get the information. So anything you can offer.
You'll get it. You will get it for sure. Believe me, you will get it for sure. The entire event is dedicated to to disclosing all these issues, to disclosing all these questions. So just be patient. We'll provide
no problem. Just if anyone has any comment on that, love to hear.
Yeah, that's
actually I had a tricky question to David. Neighboring with the USA, do you feel any kind of competition, any kind of of rivaling for interesting solutions, brilliant brains, and so on? Tricky question.
Yeah, so that's a good question. I don't know about in terms of competition. The U.S. market is much more mature. It started, probably as early as the 50s or 60s, the venture capital space industry. So Canada is younger that way. We're also a much smaller population, so we do regulate based on that, and we do we do calibrate on that. it's not really competition. There was this big, a number of years ago, we saw a lot of our talent being scooped up by big US firms. You got the Amazons, you got the Googles, and all of the big companies scooping up our top talent. But we've actually seen, and our data doesn't show this, but there are a number of interesting reports that talent is coming back to Canada. They went to the US, they really get a lot of experience, and they're coming back to Canada, and a lot of talent is staying in Canada. So I think that was the biggest concern for the Canadian government was the talent being sucked up by these US firms. But I think we're seeing the talent staying and coming back, which is a good sign from us. But I'm interested to see what the next 5 to 10 years will be like with these big companies starting up, Cohere, and seeing what will happen as we build these world-leading companies. So I'm excited to see that.
Thank you. My question is related to another topic we're going to disclosure later. I believe it's time to give the floor to our and your colleagues from the Canadian Ukrainian Chamber of Commerce. Mark Witwitsky, please, the floor is yours. Tell us about how is it to work with Canadian being Ukrainian or vice versa, and what are the existing activities? What are the plans? Please, the floor is yours.
Thank you so much, Dmitro, and thank you for the entire team at the small project team, as well as the Canadian Venture Organization, to be part of this interesting meetup. We are the Canada Ukraine Chamber of Commerce. We have 3 representatives on this call. Zanon Petichny is our president on this call, and Mark Markovich here as well as our vice president. So I will share the introduction and a speech between 3 of us. So to start with, I would like to just mention that from the historic perspective, Canada was the first country to recognize Ukrainian independence. And that's important just for the context, because throughout those years when the Ukraine was coming up, we have seen a lot of emotional investments at that time. A lot of people were giving back to the country. A lot of people were looking at the ways to support the newborn country. It is very important to mention that this sort of partnership between the 2 countries, Ukraine and Canada, is sort of built in the DNA, and we can see how it continues right now. The success rate overall, I think, in general, it depends on, as mentioned a couple of times here, on the relationship. And some of these ventures succeeded. Some of them had a lot of lessons learned in terms of how to structure and be more strategic in terms of who to partner with and what support is required from both the government and other private sector partners. But that's lesson learned, and that's the past. Obviously, everything has changed since the war broke, and all the regular change of command, all the regular understanding of the business practices, everything has changed. And the reason I'm mentioning this is because even as the organization for us, Canada Ukraine Chamber of Commerce, that it was born right after the independence, we had to pivot a lot in terms of what we want to achieve right now and how we can support the country overall in the bilateral relationship. So as the Chamber of Commerce, there is 2 main objectives that we are trying to achieve. Objective number 1 is to support the bilateral trade, look at any opportunities for businesses from both sides of the Atlantic to have an opportunities to partner, to work together and add value on both sides of things. And obviously the second one is enhancing any type of the investments and looking at bringing and scaling up Canadians company in Ukraine, but at the same time, Ukrainian companies in Canada. So as an organization, from the historic perspective, we have been involved in a lot of projects with the government and directly working with our members, because we are also member-based organizations. We have representation in Ukraine and in Canada as well, offices across Western Canada as being established as we speak. We're looking at enhancing more capacity across the country as well. With one key mandate is to ensure that we can look at enabling Canadian businesses. And one of the things that we have done recently after the war started is to become that party that can actually push the agenda forward and sort of look at the economic front, as being mentioned a couple of times. And through that, what we have done recently over the last 2 years, we have initiated two conferences here in Toronto, big influential conferences that intended to bring both political, the business side together to start talking about Ukraine as a hallmark on the map that not just is looking for support in terms of humanitarian work, which is very important, but also look at the value add. And I think that conversation continues as we just recently completed our second conference this year, which was a quite great success from what we are seeing right now. But more importantly, what those conferences and what those networking opportunities give us. And what we have seen so far is in terms of the relationship and in terms of the current activities that we do with the companies and with the government as well, is we're trying to build the new ways of working. As I mentioned before, there is no more regular chains. What we see as our mandate is to start developing those relationships, start developing those processes in the back end, and start to be able to understand better and support better Canadian businesses in Ukraine and the Ukrainian businesses here. So one of the initiatives that we're doing over top of creating the networking opportunities and enabling the businesses from pure just standpoint of bringing people together is also tools and products. So we do have currently an initiative right now that does help businesses to look at sort of the ways how to invest better, who to partner with, what are the frameworks for legal, tax, and other opportunities. So this is something that is in the pipeline for us as the organization, and we are looking forward to launch this in 2024 because this would be an opportunity for everybody to get involved. We will be creating digital platforms that will be a funnel of opportunities and the deal flows going forward, both on the government side and on the private side. So I encourage everybody to look forward for the future announcements to see how that pipeline will look like. We will obviously look at partnerships across the board to find the proper content and to find the proper ways of sharing the information. So stay tuned for more information coming from that. But in addition to just the toolkits and the enablement angle, it's very important to mention what has been done in terms of the historic perspective. And what has been done is over the last year before the war, we been instrumental in executing the first free trade agreement, which is very important to mention. It was signed in 2016. The free trade agreement has indicated at that time 4 main industries, and the key for that was for the Canadian-Ukrainian Chamber of Commerce to enable execution and actually see the results of those partnerships. So we had the entire organization fairly involved in developing different, again, tools and opportunities for trade missions, and we brought a couple of trade missions at that time, both in Canada and in Ukraine, boosting this relationship, which yielded in about 285 million investments reported by the government. And this project was supported by the governance supported by the government of Canada. With this being said, what's in the pipeline, and which is very important to understand, is that the modernization of the CUCC agreement, the free trade agreement, has just passed the second reading, I believe, which is most likely will be implemented the way it is right now with maybe minor changes. There is some political debates. We probably have seen it in the news, but there is a big understanding that it's going to happen regardless. And one of the things that we are looking forward to do as the organization is to support that in capacity of again bringing and ensuring that we have ability to better explain investors, businesses, how to operate in Ukraine, how to operate in Canada, and be able to really empower them in that journey. So I think with this, I'll pass it over. I see Zenon has just had the camera on. So maybe Zenon, over to you, a couple of words about some of the initiatives done and some of the future steps that we are looking in terms of enhancing cooperation.
Welcome to everyone, and thank you for organizing this interesting discussion. Thanks, Mark, for talking about CUCC and main role that we would like to play. As you mentioned, we're over 30 years old and have been active for many years. Right now, we were actually involved quite a bit on the modernization of the free trade agreement, because it's important to actually a group like yours, which is more in e-commerce, IT, innovation, because there are quite few chapters, new chapters in this modernized free trade agreement, but which will apply directly to some of the business that your companies or companies that belong to your associations are trying to do. So we have mentioned, for those that were at our business forum, you saw Minister Mary Eng, Minister of International Trade and Development, and she actually mentioned right there at the business forum that she would love to do a trade mission of businesses and investors and pension funds and other institutions, the trade mission to Ukraine. I'm not quite sure yet how it's going to be organized if the war continues ongoing, but she definitely wants us as Canada Ukraine Chamber of Commerce to be involved. So we'll keep you all posted as if it's going forward and when and how you can get involved and join the trade mission to Ukraine. And perhaps at that time in Ukraine we'll do some kind of also a mini forum or mini conference where perhaps your groups can be also participant and maybe talk about interesting stuff that can be done between both of our countries and our businesses in this area. But I don't want to take any more time. Thank you very much and enjoy the discussions.
Thank you, Zenon. Very briefly, if that's okay, still, Metro and Charles, if I can pass the mic to Mark.
Yeah, maybe.
Yeah, for sure.
Maybe I can add just 2 minutes here, guys. Thanks for organizing this. One important part, in addition to my role at CUCC, I run the investment consulting business, but more focused on the mature companies and sort of real sector. So what I've seen over the last 10 years that I've been involved with Ukraine here from Canada, the most important part is who do you partner with? And I think for my Canadian colleagues, I would say that I think I met Andriy in 2018. I've seen tremendous growth with UVCA, and I think they would be the ideal candidates. We've seen over the last 10-15 years, governments change. They try to implement sort of their new initiatives. And to be honest, I haven't seen it work out, but I've seen a huge growth and success that UVCA has been able to do in Ukraine. So as a entry point, as for the venture guys, I think UVCA is the ideal vehicle to learn, who's who and what's available. So that's partnership is one of the most important things. And maybe the other part that I'll say, because I know, Metro, you mentioned the GDP growth. My clients have roughly $400 million invested in Ukraine, more mature kind of real sector economies. But 2022, because you guys talked about the resiliency. 2022 was probably one of the most profitable years for us. So, that just shows that, if you can do it in a more mature sectors, imagine the potential in the early stage investment. So anyway, thank you very much, guys. We here at the CUCC as well would love to be your partners or you ours and help each other out for sure. Thank you.
Thanks, Mark.
Thank you.
And
Actually,
go ahead. On Sodwi, because it's all sort of networking partnerships is very, very important, because again we talked about the trust, but the other very important mechanism is obviously the de-risking mechanism that the countries can do. And this is something as well as the mandate for our organization is to work and really push the governments on different levels to find the solutions how they can support the businesses. Canadians, and I remember, and I will never forget this, we had an event with the Ombudsman recently, Zenon and Mr. Roman Vashchuk were at the event, and the previous ambassador to Ukraine has said one thing, that the abundance of caution is the biggest commodity the Canadians are exporting, which is sort of funny in a way, but it's also true, because the way how the Canadian businesses are looking at investing in countries that are not fully understandable to them is, and for us, it's sort of the way how to tell that story properly and how to bring those tools in a way that the businesses, the organizations feel supported and safe. So just last note here is that part of the job and the mandate that we have is to really work with every different level of the government to find the solutions and to support you guys in your investment journey. So I'll wrap on that. Thank you again for the opportunity to speak at this interesting meetup. Over to you, Dmitro.
Thank you, Mark. Thank you, the entire CUCC team. I appreciate your words. I appreciate your support, Charles.
Yeah, thanks, Mark, for this last word, because that was one of my questions. I mean, you've got about half a dozen countries or half a dozen systems, at least, even on a regional basis, of de-risking initiatives, like in France, BPI, in Germany, in the UK. How likely do you think it's going to move on the Canadian side in 2024? I mean, do you think it's a matter of 3 months, 6 months? Are the discussions already advanced, or are we, starting from scratch at this stage?
You want me to start, Mark-Jan?
Yeah.
Actually, the company or institution in Canada that's looking at doing something in this area is Export Development Corporation. As you know, they have right now war insurance for trade, so for your goods, but still no war insurance for investments. And as we started talking with them, a year and a half ago, right after the war started, I mean, they were totally not even ready to talk about anything about doing business in Ukraine. Never mind some kind of war insurance for investments from Canada to Ukraine. But I think our organization has been pushing them very, very hard. And I mean, government of Canada is starting to push them also hard. And I see now that they've even done few sort of webinars around the country, talking to businesses that want to do something in Ukraine and asking them, what is your main concern? What is your main problem? And insurance obviously keeps on coming up all the time. And they have now started to think about what they can do in this area. I know they have been talking to EBRD, they have been talking to MIGA from US, and perhaps they will look at something jointly with one of the other organizations that are already doing things in war insurance. So definitely EDC has moved quite a bit to decide that they want to do something, but I mean, when it's going to be done, is it going to be first quarter of 2024, or is it going to be end of 2024? I'm not sure, because it's sort of semi-government institution, even though it's not government institution, but they basically manage and run government's money. So there are certain regulations that they have to, that they're binded by. But as one of the speakers at the conference even said, that talking to EDC is good and let them be ready for it. But he also mentioned, and he's a former federal minister from Canada. He said one of the things that you have to do is really press Canadian government, because they will probably have to change certain regulations that EDC is bound by, and that is maybe something that we need to do next, is go after Canadian government, saying, look, they will do it and they're ready to do it, or they want to do it, but they're limited by what you are allowing them to do. So there could be some laws that need to be pushed through quickly and get that done. Thank you.
Yeah. Charles, I just want to add, we don't have a crystal ball, but I think the trigger for the real stuff will happen based on the very solid business case. And if there is a business case that will be proven that have a success rate, then I think, you can push from different levels, from the business, from the government. Right now, when we talk about this theoretically, sometimes it's extremely, extremely hard to get to the point where the solutions are being implemented. So I think that seeing a real deals coming in, at least one or two, will be the trigger to find the real solutions. That's just my 2 cents on that.
Thanks, Mark. Thanks, Xenon. Well, is there any question at this stage? Because it's now time to open the global discussion. So I don't know whether you have.
It's time to hop to another part of our event.
Exactly.
Yeah. So open discussion. I mean, during this little panel, we would like to give the floor to several speakers from Ukrainian and Canadian side. And then these people will, first of all, they will briefly represent themselves, and then they will participate in discussion. They will answer questions, they will share their thoughts, and you can ask them anything you want. I mean, in legal frame.
And the question is really, why are you here today? What is your interest? I mean, what are you, so.
Who are you? What is your organization?
Yeah.
And what are you doing here today? I would like to pass the floor to Andrei Zinchuk, founding manager of ZAS Ventures. Andrei, are you here?
Yeah. Hi guys. Sorry for the video. I'm driving, but we have the
Drive
awards
safely.
nomination today for Ukrainian startup ecosystem, so I have to be there. Well, I think our portfolio company is going to be nominated, actually become the winner of the like startup of the year. That's at least what the rumor is, but so have to be there. But yes, I'm a founder and solo general partner of ZAS Ventures. So we are, I call it, we are US fund with Ukrainian heart. So we are the only pre-seed fund in the Ukrainian market right now. Because due to the war, a lot of actually VC stopped investing. So we invest out of our kind of first fund, which is called Brave Ukraine Fund. It's a 3 million fund to invest in Ukrainian founders that have traction in the US market. And part of the team is actually in Ukraine. And also we match our investment from the fund with our syndicate. So typically like Ukrainian startups at pre-seed stage are raising about $300,000. So we invest in tranches per KPIs about $100,000, and then we match it with our syndicate. So we've launched in July and already made 4 investments from the fund and a few more from the syndicate. So totally we already invested over like almost $1 million so far, basically in a Q4. Yeah, and we are still fundraising as a fund. So we are Delaware domiciled. I'm also in 2021, I went through emerging fund manager program in Silicon Valley called VC Lab. And actually in 2021, I was raising 15 million fund. And once the US announced that it's going to be imminent threat, all of my LPs decided to wait it out. So we had to put the 15 million fund on hold. And then, but we were, as Ukrainians, we were very resilient. So we managed to, even during the wartime, to raise a new fund. And basically, I think it's the only case so far in the world that someone actually raised the fund being in an active war zone, startups who are actually in an active war zone. Yeah, that's in a nutshell. So I'm looking for co-investors, also looking for LPs as well. Yeah, that's in a nutshell.
Awesome. As Andrei said in the very beginning, here is one of these funds who is raising right now, so you can join this fund as an LP and give your money to Andrei. So thank you, Andrei. Now I'd like to pass the floor to Oleg Karitsky. He represents the Player One Ventures, one of the most active investment fund in Ukraine. Oleg?
Yeah, hello everybody. I hope you see me and hear me. Great to be a part of this conversation. So I represent Player One Ventures. We are an international VC investing in different sector agnostic, focusing on Ukraine, Central Eastern Europe, and of course taking a deep look at the United States, Europe as well. We invest from prestige to Series A stages, and our average ticket size is around $500,000. Initially, we were founded as a corporate VC arm by a huge tech unicorn, Ukrainian tech unicorn, which is called Genesis, which produces consumer apps and marketplaces. And the cumulative revenue of the whole holding is around $1.5 billion. And this one of our advantages because we can share the expertise from this company within our portfolio companies, and we hear quite often that our portfolio companies name us as the most helpful VC on their cap table. We also have a huge platform team, which is quite unusual for Western VCs, which is bigger than the investment team. We help our portfolio companies with marketing, with PR and communications, with fundraising, with hiring people across different continents. Next year, we are going to fundraise our new fund. And so we are also interested in talking to different kinds of LPs. And actually, we have one portfolio company, a Canadian portfolio company, which is founded by a Ukrainian guy, which is called Deskry. We are super happy with this investment and took the first look at the Canadian startup ecosystem, which is pretty vibrant. So thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Oleg. Thank you, Oleg. Now floor goes to Alexander Soroka, Network VC. Alexander, are you here?
You're mute.
Yeah, sorry.
Okay.
We are Ukrainian fund based in California and Silicon Valley. We have 50 startups in our portfolio. Currently, we invest in 2 startups every month. Last few months, we invested in probably 4 Ukrainian startups. Usually, we invest in late seed and round A stages. So usually, when the startup has already 1 million and more in revenue, and this year it was really good that we could find a lot of Ukrainian startups that reach this, I would say, threshold. But overall, we have like probably 15% of Ukrainian startups in our portfolio. Usually we invest in the US, but we have some investments in Latin America, Middle East, Asia, and Europe. And so, yeah, we are open for collaboration. We always look for the new startups, and we are glad to share our deal flow with you. We have a special, I would say, community and platform, VC House, vc.house. You can join, and we will share with you our deals, and we'll be glad if you can share good deals with us as well. Thank you very much, Dima.
Thank you, Alexander. Just a few words. Alexander has a great experience in Ukrainian startups because he created the first Ukrainian platform gathering together Ukrainian and Eastern European startups in, I guess, in 2011. Yeah?
We started in 2009, but platform.
Yeah. So don't hesitate to contact.
On our platform, startup.network, we have approximately 30,000 startups from 120 countries, and it's an open platform. Everybody can use it and find a good deal flow of early stage startups.
Yeah. Thank you, Alexander. Floor goes to Oleg Silenko, which present Diligent Capital Partners Private Equity Fund. Oleg,
yes,
are you here?
Yep.
The floor is yours.
Thank you. Yeah, so I represent Diligent Capital. We're Ukraine-based, Ukraine-focused private equity fund. Our first priority is private equity deals, $15-20 million check size in agricultural value chain, so far from tech. But our second priority is actually tech. We have Traply in our portfolio, being the biggest one, and like the general focus on later stage growth equity companies. But currently we are neither fundraising nor investment new capital. We are being realistic that unfortunately no money is coming to this stage, especially for younger fund managers in Ukraine. We're optimistic about the future. We keep the team, but reality is that only one fund raised money since the start of the war, like significant check, is Horizon Capital, and it's like a flagman of Ukrainian investment industry, let's say. But yeah, what I see and what we're doing, we're just waiting for better times to come.
But anyway, you are fundraising.
No, we're not fundraising right now.
Not yet. Okay.
We're not spending time on that because we have clear message from our potential limited partners that it's a no-go. So
rumor has it that you do. So don't be so.
Not actually. We were fundraising before the full-scale invasion. We have soft commitments for our second fund for $100 million plus, but then the full-scale invasion started and everything's on hold since then.
Okay. Anyway, we're here to to fix this issue. Thank you.
Yeah, I know. I don't want to be pessimistic. Just like reality check.
Okay. Thank you, Oleg. Thank you. And the floor goes to Ruslan Kostetsky, who represents the Ukrainian Association of Fintech and Innovation Companies. Ruslan, are you here?
Yes. Dmitro,
the floor is yours.
Thank you, colleagues, for inviting for this great event. Some of you I met in Toronto recently, and it was a pleasure to communicate, to talk about perspective of Ukraine in investing. I'm representing Ukrainian fintech ecosystem. You're right, it's a Ukrainian Fintech Association, and during last years before the war, we were very actively supporting so kind of fintech laboratories at Ukrainian universities. We were teaching students in tech, some finance, and some students in economics and finance. We were teaching IT, so to make good startups. And recently, during the war, we were returning to our fintech labs and see that a lot of universities created their own startup projects, startup centers, whatever they call it, and they are looking for some promotion of these startups. Also, we, with the beginning of the war, with the support of European Union, European Commission, and International Financial Corporation, for the request of fintechs, made the decision to create a so-called matching platform for Ukrainian companies who are providing ITC services. And the European Commission supported with finances this platform. And 3 pillars of this platform is matching of the Ukrainian companies to international customers in IT, in programming, design, etc. A lot of services. And the second pillar is API. It's new like technology for Ukraine. We are going to open banking in 2025, so a lot of new business models, etc. And the third one pillar, it's the topic of this meeting. We have investment block, and probably this investment block, we are new in investment, but we are not dealing with investments. We have a lot of fintechs in Ukraine who are oriented internally with products for Ukraine. And with the beginning of the war, they started to look for international markets to position their products and scale internationally. So we want to help them by this platform to find new opportunities abroad. We want to invite investors also to our platform to communicate with you as much as possible, because promotion is I suppose, the main important activity we need to do right now with the Ukrainian companies, Ukrainian startups looking for investments. And probably it will be a good challenge also for companies, innovation companies, fintech companies, to find good investment, find good investor, and find good opportunity to scale their business abroad. We are developing platform right now, and at the end of January, we will go to the market. So I suppose to meet with a lot of you somewhere in the beginning of January next year. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you for your information, for your hints. And I would like to present 2 more speakers from Ukrainian side. First of all, Sergey Kalinchuk, who represents the Integrated Partners Venture Studio. Sergey,
thank you.
The floor is yours.
Thank you everyone for giving this opportunity to present myself. So we are working at the very early stage of the startup chain, basically the angel investment stage. And the studio and also the Founder Institute Accelerator. It's a US-based accelerator that I'm part of a Ukrainian team. Here, we are trying to help the startups basically get to the stage where they can attract investments from institutional investors and from venture funds. And our model as a venture studio is not to just provide services, but to basically participate as co-founders in those projects, and therefore make sure they get to the stage where they are ready to raise money. And yeah, basically, it's quite difficult to get foreign angel investments, and still we are trying to work with several Germany-based angel investment clubs, and we will be glad to cooperate with venture studios or angel investment communities in Canada. Thank you.
Thank you, Sergey. And now I will ask Charles to introduce another one Ukrainian speaker, because he is a good friend of Charles and a good friend of mine as well.
Yeah, I'd like to introduce you to Jan Shapiro, who is who I met, at one stage in Ukraine. I can't remember when, but I was particularly impressed by his project, which is a difficult time for the city of Odessa. He's creating the first startup incubator and accelerator in the south of Ukraine. So I'd like that Jan talks about a bit his project and his vision.
Hello everyone. Hello Charles. Thank you for introducing me. I will tell just briefly about our initiative. It's launching of the first international startup accelerator in Odessa, because our region needs to be more developed and to integrate technologies, innovations, startups into Ukrainian economy rebuilding. And because if Kyiv, Lviv, Dnipro, Kharkiv now are more developed than southern part of Ukraine, but we have really many entrepreneurs who can assist startups, who can invite some new innovation solutions to their business, etc. And now we are agreed to partner with most of local organizations, business clubs, regional development agency. We are very happy to hear the words of support of UVCA. They attended our first innovation conference in Odessa on July 7th. We already made 3 conferences in Europe in spring, because we understood that it's better to bring some results to Odessa to show what we have and what we can and what we are going to do. It was in Berlin, Amsterdam, and Paris. And we are also looking for Canadian partners. I remember my first discussion with Zenon about maybe creating some kind of a service where we can ask Ukrainian diaspora in Canada to be the first customers of Ukrainian startups, and to support them in this way, because it's very important for Ukrainian products to reach the first customers, traction, etc. And maybe Canadian Ukrainians can support us, and because Ukrainian market mostly thinking about how to survive, and Ukrainians who lived for many years in foreign countries maybe have more opportunities to pay for some services of Ukrainian products. And also I have a question, because it's very interesting how Canadian ecosystem is working in regions, because as for me, it's very important to understand how to build ecosystem in Odessa, because it's not the capital, it's not the central point of all financing, but how in Canada it works, and is Toronto just the capital of startup nation in Canada, or cities as Montreal, Vancouver, Ottawa, and others are also, it's like have their, maybe more popular verticals where they develop startups, etc. So this is my question to Canadian colleagues. We'll be happy to hear.
I believe they will have a chance to answer to your question.
Okay, it's for future, but if you will have opportunity, we'll be happy to hear.
Thank you, Jan. Thank you, Jan. Charles, do you mind to present some speakers from Canadian side?
Yeah, I mean, I think that we have we'd like to hear about anyone willing to say something about why he or she is around the table. I mean, I'm seeing that we've got people from Angel Quebec, Nicolas. I think got Nicolas Roubaud from Espace CDCQ. So I think that they're major actors in the Canadian fields. I mean, you guys, do you want to just say a couple of words about you and why you're around the table, and then we move on to the next discussion, which is how does the Canadian VC ecosystem sees Ukraine as an opportunity for investment? And Marina Cortes from Intrinsic VC will head up will start this discussion. But in between that, I mean, before that moment, do you want to present yourself and say why you're here?
Yeah, I can start, Charles.
Thanks.
Nicolas Roubaud, I'm the managing director of Espace CDPQ, and it kind of follows the question, the previous question. Espace CDPQ is a venture capital community based in Montreal. It basically is a physical space that has now 25 venture capital funds in the same space. It's supported by the largest pension fund in Canada, which is the CDPQ, which is the Quebec pension fund, which has over $440 billion of assets under management. The purpose of this is to bring the VC ecosystem under one roof so that they can potentially co-invest together on deals, compete together on deals, but be in the same space where organic discussions are happening every day about deals and entrepreneurs and tech and innovation. So I manage that space. The Quebec market is about a $2.5 to $3 billion market in terms of investment in VC annually. It's about half the size of the Toronto market, but it's the second biggest market in Canada, followed closely by the Vancouver market. And the total market's about 10 billion total in Canada. So that gives you the landscape of and that's venture, not growth, not private equity, and really venture from sort of pre-seed to Series CD. And I mean, why am I here? Just curiosity. Charles is an angel in one of the tenants here at Espace, and happy to join and sort of listen in and to see if there's things that could happen with some of the funds that are located in our space.
Thanks a lot, Nicolas. Maybe Nicolas, Mati, you want to say a couple of words, because both Sergey and Andre have spoken about early stage investment, seed and pre-seed, and this is your real field of expertise with Angel Quebec. So, Nicolas.
Yes. Hello, everyone. I'm Nicolas Mathieu from Ange Quebec Network. Ange Quebec is one of the biggest angel network here in Canada, and we invest in early stage startups, pre-seed, seed. We have about 200 angels investing every year. We typically invest 10 to 20 million per year in almost 30 startups per year. So happy to discuss with you. We typically invest in Quebec-based startups, so not in Ukraine, but yeah. And Charles is one of our best members. So thank you, Charles, for inviting me today. But I'm here just by Nicolas, by curiosity.
Thank you very much, Nicolas. Is there any question at this stage? Otherwise, we'll move on to the next discussion, and we'll leave the floor to Mariana Cortes. Is there anybody willing to take the floor just before Marina? 1, 2, 3, no. So Marina.
Thank you, Charles. Thank you for having me today. It's a pleasure to be here. And so I'll talk a little bit about what we do at Intrinsic and our interest into the Ukrainian market. Intrinsic Venture Capital is part of Intrinsic Group. We have the commercial real estate fund that's about $70-80 million, and we also have Intrinsic Venture Capital, which is about $200 million under management, and a nonprofit entity that's called Intrinsic Innovation, with several offices throughout Asia. The role of Intrinsic Innovation is to work hands-on with Intrinsic Venture Capital into bringing startups into the Canadian market so that we can invest into the Canadian entity. Intrinsic Innovation has offices through Asia. Currently, at the moment, we're looking at Vietnam, Singapore, Japan, and also a couple of other places. We're expanding into more offices as we speak, and I think that we should be able to give a bigger picture of where we are at by the new year. But most importantly, Intrinsic Venture Capital and Intrinsic Innovation both are qualified for the startup visa. That means that if you do receive investment from Intrinsic Venture Capital, you can apply to the startup visa, and if the same way you are part of Intrinsic Innovation, you can also apply for a startup visa in Canada. And what we really like to do is investing into companies that are willing to come here into the Canadian market so that we can invest in a Canadian entity and then help foster economic development within here on the Canadian soil. And that really is the core of our mandate here. Now, our interest into the Ukrainian market, it really comes down to 3 main categories. The first one is the quality of talents that we see in Ukraine. And I really want to make it clear that we do see a lot of talents in Ukraine in terms of development, in terms of AI software engineers, the talents of the CEO as well, that is really, really competent and really strong. And we feel that this type of talent are probably complement, to what we have here in the North American market. And we would want to have access to this talent and the startup that they're building. I've met myself, a few Ukrainian startups that were part of several accelerators at 500 Global, at Techstars, and to a few other places. And the quality of the creativity of the startups that were coming out of Ukraine were quite good. And it was incredible to see how they would come up with very new solutions, like the stuff that we've never seen on the market before. Their product, the design, the marketing, their plan, everything has been very thoroughly established. They're very strong CEOs, and we really appreciate that pedigree, But what we see as a risk is, unfortunately, like you mentioned, the geopolitical situation in the country. And so we want to provide help, but our only help that we can do as Intrinsic Venture Capital, hands-on with Intrinsic Innovation, is to help the startup coming here on the Canadian soil. So we do provide, on the innovation side, we have immigration services, incorporation, and everything. Like, we have a full one-stop package that we can provide to a startup who wants to come here. We can help them all the way to get a startup visa so that they come in Canada. We can provide offices, and then Intrinsic Venture Capital will invest into the Canadian entity. But our help is, as much as we can do today, really is, to come and help these founders into scaling into North American market, and sort of, tackling a little bit of the risk of the geopolitical stability. It doesn't mean that you have to stay here for the whole operation of the startup or up to an exit, but the optic is to eventually the CEO would come and look at an IPO here on the Canadian soil, or an M&A, or at least like keep some form of operations here. And so the way that we mitigate this risk, it really is to provide the support to help folks coming here. We also have a lot of advisory services that can be helpful when it comes to navigate grants and tax incentives and etc. But what we want to see is the talents and the creativity of the startups. We find it very, very compelling. And we want to also help the startups that are there into opening to a global market. And we feel that this type of pedigree, this type of curriculum, would probably benefit from our help. And to coming here, talking to North American investors, establishing a very strong cash flow basis, establishing a very strong strategy. And then there's nothing that prevents, the startup from then being operational back into the Ukrainian market. A lot of our startups currently have this dual form of operations in their current market as well as in Canada. Some of them have moved entirely. Some of them are in and out. It really depends. As long as it works for the whole team. The other thing that I wanted to mention is that we see a lot of pros. So like I was telling you, a lot of talents, a lot of creativity, a lot of very strong CEOs. There's a little bit of cons into looking into the Ukrainian market, and of course, the main problem would be: is there a platform to scale? Is there a lot of support from investors that you can benefit in your local market to scale that company into a global company, to have enough outreach to global markets that are surrounding you? And I think the geographic location of the startup here in Ukraine would be very difficult to look at proximate market, because the next proximate market that you have from a Ukrainian standpoint is Europe. And then you do have very strong economic powerhouse like Russia, like China, like all of those places that are around. But it would be very difficult right now, to go and do business with this, with the geographies. And so we feel that the major cause is that if you are currently a startup here in Ukraine, it would be very difficult to scale, and it would be very difficult to find fundings as well. And the Ukrainian startup that we have talked to, we're facing those challenges. And we understand also that there's a lack of interest from international investors for investing into the Ukrainian market. So that's why we, provide that solution to come here and essentially establish your ground and develop your solution and grow on all the North American markets, the US and Canada. And if we can establish as well connection, will provide some value into penetrating the markets in Asia, we would definitely, go a long way for this. The other risk that we see into the Ukrainian market for us is, what we like to do as Intrinsic is that we like to open an office there, and we like to be able to talk to startup and, to have this conversation and then see them grow, see them coming here, invest into the Canadian entity. But the current geopolitical stability makes it a little bit of a risk for us to go and have an office in Ukraine at the moment. But it's something that we can consider, and we have considered like other geographic region as well to open our next destination. We always look for opportunities for us and for support from government entities into establishing our footprint so that we can support the local startups into becoming a global brand name. The migration of talent also to North America is something that is not necessarily a risk, but that it's always a pending question, and we really want to see how are the talent is going to be able to migrate if I think there was Charles mentioning earlier, if there is a draw for joining the military, into regions where there is an active fight. How easy is it for a Ukrainian passport to come in here and come to Canada, or to move maybe the entire family? Like, how is the financial support coming into play? Because it is also very costly. And so this is why we invest into a Canadian entity, because we know that there are costs up front that can be covered if we feel that there is huge potential of that startup to be fully functional and to lead to a successful exit. We can provide some form of capital to support some of this type of use of funds. And so I think in a nutshell, this is about our interest into the Ukrainian market. We importantly don't do fund-of-fund investments, but we do look for government partners to help us establish into these regions, and then see how we can provide best value into coming into the North American market. So we're always open to discussions if there is interest as well. If you have any questions, please let me know.
I believe there are going to be questions, or I can start. Yes, current situation in Ukraine is pretty risky in terms of investments, in terms of entering different kind of agreements. But for now, we have a situation when pretty big number of Ukrainian startups, they run their businesses, they run their startups here in Ukraine in more safe zone, I mean, western part of Ukraine, and they are open for attracting more investments by establishing entities abroad, in European jurisdiction or in the US, Delaware. Do you consider this possibility as plausible, as doable to enter these startups? What do you say?
Yeah, absolutely. So because this is essentially what we do at Intrinsic, we help them incorporate here in Canada. We help them setting up an entity. We've done mix and match as well. We've set up entities in the US so that we invest into the entity there, but that knowing that there is a Canadian presence. And so we don't see this as a risk. We actually see this as a positive outcome, because once you have your incorporation in North America, and once you have your funds either through Delaware LLC outside of a zone that can be considered dangerous, if you are in the European market or in the North American market, it makes it a lot easier for us to invest. We've invested into US entities before, and in Canadian entities as well. And so this is not a problem. And I think that the best outcome is, although you are branded as a Ukrainian startup, you might have incorporations elsewhere, and you might have your funds as well, that are being held outside of the country, which I think is very smart, because you don't want to have your account frozen or anything that could happen, politically. And so you need to have access to these funds. And so we definitely feel that this is the right solution to go. I've met Ukrainian startups in the past, and I think they're very strong, and their strategy was to come here on the Delaware LLC and to move their bank account in the US and fundraise in the US. We've met some that want to come to Canada and have incorporation in Canada, bank accounts in the US, and some LLC as well. So they all have complex structure, but the goal is to fit the investors. Some US investors are not comfortable investing in Canada. They need to have the money staying in the US. So in that case, you create a Delaware LLC, you have the bank account there, and then you have your money there. And if you have operations in Europe and in Canada, then you can wire that money internally. And so complex structure is not something that you should be afraid of. It happens all the time. And as the company grow on the scale of, on the growth stage, you're always going to find this type of complex structure, in various countries. And so it's not something that you should be scared of. I actually find it quite interesting that you have several options, in front of you to kind of move around and be able to mitigate the risk if there is any risk in terms of geopolitical stability, of financials. We've seen so many things happen, recently. The SVB drama, the Silicon Valley Bank drama, was a good example. So if you had all your money held by the SVB Bank, then you were completely in the trouble. And so that's why we like to see something that's a little bit more broad, where you mitigate the risk on your own terms, and that's perfectly fine.
Yeah,
Okay.
just a couple of things. I mean, all the startups I've met recently, they are all incorporated in Delaware or in Estonia, or there is a little topic that we can, we reach out at the end of the meetup about how to invest in Ukrainian practice. But I think that there is the structure, and there is also the people, and I think that it's a point that I would like to stress, but later on during the meeting, because it's about how to keep the people, how to keep the talents, and how also Ukraine will have to retain its talents for post-war era. I mean, if everybody leaves Ukraine and start, their companies abroad, that's going to be more complicated for the country. The other thing I would like to to say is that I've seen, like the economy and the tech industry. I'm talking about what I know more. The tech industry coming from a subcontracting type of company to now we have real product companies, and that's a very important move, which started actually my understanding before the full-scale invasion, but in some fields, in some areas, it has of course accelerated. And I'm thinking about the miltech. There are some clusters, and there is a very dynamic ecosystem around that. So when you say to people that companies like Grammarly, like GitLab, like Reply, etc., are Ukrainians, that's sometimes somewhat of a surprise. So, but I find very interesting that that you're supporting and that you have a really active view on Ukraine investment. That's pretty new, probably in the Canadian VC ecosystem. I mean, do we have anyone else from Canada willing to add up something to what Marina just said?
Or from Ukrainian side to ask any question? Colleagues? Because I have another one.
I've got another one
question.
Sorry. Go ahead. We've got another one that I just saw now.
Yeah. Okay. My question is pretty simple. Comparing to Delaware, for example, is one of the most popular locations for establishing the entity. Comparing to this location, is Canada more affordable, more flexible? Does it have less taxes, or what are the advantages to establish a new entity in Canada rather than in Delaware, for example?
I think this is a great question, and we do hear that question a lot, and I think we're going to have to start to prepare some material to defend ourselves versus our U.S. partners. The U.S. startup visa historically has been very strict into oncoming investors, where folks that are coming with a startup visa. But the problem with the U.S. startup visa is that it's contingent to a lot of KPIs. So you need to meet the number of people that you have to hire, and I cannot remember how much it is, but I know that they are asking you to hire a certain number of folks. They're asking you to raise a certain amount of money, and if you fail to meet that criteria, then eventually your visa would be voided, and so that's a major threat to a startup coming into the US. So you need to be pretty advanced, and you cannot just come here to raise money. In Canada, the KPIs are a lot more flexible. So as long as you have one person coming here on the Canadian soil, and then there is some equity discussions as well, then you're a lot more better position to stay, and then to have your permanent residency here, so your Canadian green card, and then become a citizen. So the requirement is just a lot more stringent here on the Canadian soil. And of course, if you work with Intrinsic, we provide offices, so that's a lot easier for us to help our startup coming here. But I think generally speaking, the cost of life is a lot less in Canada compared to our US partners. And I'm not a tax specialist, but I can definitely tell you that, depending on the states and depending on where you want to establish, it might be a lot costly in terms of establishing your operations in the US. And the cost of labor is also a lot more expensive because talents in the US are well known to not be very cheap. So I think that in terms of ease of doing business, I find it a lot easier here. And it does not prevent you to have a Delaware LLC to raise funds if you need to. It does not prevent you from raising funds from US investors, because a lot of US investors are raising in Canada. So I think it just opens a lot more opportunities down the road, and it's just like a lot easier in my own point of view. But of course, you have to consider everything that you put on the table and what are the risks for each case. We've had no problem into having startups coming here and obtaining work permit until their permanent residency was being processed. And we had a lot of success stories that we can share with the audience. But I just felt that in terms of ease of doing business, it's just a lot easier to move here. And on the long term, the perspective are also big. Usually the Canadian market is also a step into the US market. So you do have access to both because you're on the same time zone and you have like the ease of meeting with folks as well. You can travel freely between the US and Canada. It's a lot easier once you're here on site than compared if you were to Europe, you know, and having to come to the US to meet with people. So in terms of business development as well, you have access to both markets. I just find it, you know, a lot easier in that way. But I can definitely look up for some numbers and circle back to the audience if there is a need to. I think it's a question that just comes like so often, but we're gonna have to keep this
I believe it helps. I believe it helps. And Charles, I'm so sorry for taking an additional time for this question, but thank you, Marina. Thank you, Marina. I guess it's time to move to another discussion. Yeah. So I would like to ask my Ukrainian friends, my Ukrainian colleagues, to share your thoughts on the following topic. From your point of view, what is or what could be the economic growth pillars for today and tomorrow? I mean, in terms of industries, in terms of, I don't know, possible boosting, something like this. So from your perspective, from your point of view, please share your thoughts and answer the questions. You can speak at will.
So, Dima, I believe you know the next big thing for Ukraine is military tech.
Absolutely.
And we really already invested just a few weeks ago in our first military tech startup. It's a Ukrainian and American mixed team. It was the first startup that was accepted to US military government accelerator. And I believe, you know, the situation in which Ukraine is now and the number of IT specialists can really do a lot of great startups, because what I know, the situation is really interesting, because nobody was waiting for this drone war, and there are a lot of opportunities in this space. So, and from my point of view, this is not a hot topic yet in the US at least, so no hype, and the valuations are good. And you know, but big VCs like Andreessen Horowitz already started to invest in Miltech in later stages. And so I believe it can be a really great market, especially because the budgets of European countries and maybe many other countries in the world will start to grow in the near future.
Thank you. And a few following remarks. For now, due to the war period, we have an incredible opportunity in Miltech to create and test these solutions almost at once. It's a pity that we have this opportunity, but we should use this opportunity, and I believe we're going to succeed on this. Thank you, Alexander. Please, who's next? Maybe we're gonna listen to some more words about the fintech. What do you think?
Sure, Dima, but last of 5 startups in which we have invested this autumn was AI startups.
Okay, so next pillar is AI. Okay, could you elaborate this?
And Ukraine really has a great expertise in this as well. And so I see a lot of really great startups. We even invested in one Ukrainian startup which is located in Canada. It's an AI startup in space, text to video, for corporate education, really growing. The revenue is growing really fast. So yeah, Canada is also, I would say Canada has some Ukrainian startups that are based now there, because it's a probably safe place to be today.
Yeah, thank you.
I absolutely agree with that point. I mean, I'm following, I'm working with an AI and Miltech company, mixing AI and Miltech for, I mean, AI and GIS for tech applications such as demining. So I think that there are very, interesting AI companies. I would also, put one word about agri-tech, because, and maybe Jan, who is in the south of the country, can say a couple of words about that, because I think one of the challenges of the country will be, one of the pillars is, of course, agricultural production, and it's going to have to be more clean. Let's put it that way in the next tens of years, and I think that agri-tech will also be one of the developing pillars of the global economy of Ukraine. Jan, do you want to say a word on what you see in your region?
Charles, sorry, I did not hear quite good about which industry have you talked?
Agricultural tech, agri-tech. The possibility to make. I think that the challenge for Ukrainian agriculture in the next, in the integration to Europe is going to be to have a clean agriculture, which is not yet the case. And agriculture is a big issue for climate changes and for the climate issues. And I think that will be one of the challenges of the Ukrainian agriculture in the next years to come.
Yeah, you're right. This is a really big industry in Ukraine, and I hope it will be a lot of innovations in this industry, especially in Ukraine. But I would say in Silicon Valley, now everybody is talking about AI. So, do you remember this movie with Forrest Gump, when he had a friend whose mother could cook some shrimps? So it was boiled shrimps, fried shrimps, baked shrimps, and so same situation with AI today. And we had our event in Palo Alto just a few days ago, and we had 10 startups on this event. We do pitch events in 55 countries. And 8 of 10 startups probably were AI startups, but still fintech, cybersecurity, software as a services, are still on the table.
Maybe we have Jan and Ruslan speaking about Jan for this specific question, and maybe then Ruslan to speak about the fintech.
Yeah,
Jan?
sure.
Okay, speaking about agriculture vertical, of course, so this region is well known by its scale in this economic vertical, and after the war we will have maybe thousands of teams who can build and create drones that now they're involved in our military talents, but after the war we can focus them on agriculture development, because so that's a region is also a logistics center. And by the way, now we see how creative our nation, and they are delivering trucks to in this situation when they can cross the border with Poland, they are using trains to deliver the trucks to Europe. So let's be more creative and came up with an ideas how we can develop our economy. And the answer is simple, yes. Of course, agriculture.
Before agriculture drone, Jan, we need drones for demining our territory.
Also true. That's also true.
And I know
if anyone wants to talk about drones for demining, I'm your man, because I'm specifically working with on that project with a company, an AI company in Kyiv. So I would be very happy.
Oh, yeah, I'll be. I want to talk to those guys. Yeah.
Yeah, sure. Ruslan on fintech.
Yes, fintech. I suppose that besides fintech, digital is the main area we need to concentrate during the war and after the war. And fintech as technologies in digital, mostly in digital, they're the most applicable for investments. And these investments are based on the principle, as we are looking right now, that after talking to companies, that many fintechs really are reoriented for international markets, and they try to make their product international, not like Ukrainian based out of the box. So they're trying to keep their products like white label to push from Ukraine abroad, and they're trying like from Poland, from Bulgaria to other countries. They are limited in resources, in marketing, in sales, in different promotion instruments. So we as association are thinking how to help them. And also, I think that fintechs in Ukraine, they are a bit more different in some way as international countries has experienced, because in Ukraine, for example, we just started to digitalize some areas of business like credit unions. They started to go online, and they need new solutions because they're a bit different from banking, from financial companies, from PDLs, etc. So the whole market is trying to go online, and I suppose that this initiative will call new startups, new technologies, and they will, some of them will go internationally. We are looking at agri-food tech. Really, it's very important field where new products, new startups will arise very quickly for this year, maybe next year. And after the war, it will be a growing segment for startups. Also, I see very good interest from international friends in InsurTech. Canadian companies are already working in Ukraine in insurance market, so I suppose we can come to Canada also with some proposition for InsurTech business or companies. And especially I would like to outline the experience of Ukraine in neo-banking. It's a huge business, and here we have very good experience how to create this, promote this, and also we have attempts to scale it internationally. You have this news from newspapers, from internet. Along with this, as also I didn't mention this, I push and support in Ukraine the journal or newspaper, electronic newspaper, we call it fintechinsider.com.ua. So everyone who want to promote the initiatives, you are welcome. Just write me and we will help to make some assistance by promoting info in Ukrainian market. Unfortunately, it's just in Ukrainian language right now, but we are looking to make it in English and also promote internationally. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
I would.
And
can I also add
yeah, for sure. Yeah.
to this topic, because for some reason EdTech in Ukraine become a big thing. So we know Preply, Headway, it's now, I don't know, maybe it's crossed over $100 million revenue already. And also Grammarly kind of started from EdTech, now it's more global. And I believe both for Ukraine, where we like our traditional education is lagging behind because after COVID, the work came and we have to find some new solutions to educate the population. But also for the world, it may be one of the big themes, and it's already the place where we have some success stories. And after Preply, there are a lot of smaller companies doing the same thing, either in the English language or in some other areas. So I'm really bullish on EdTech in Ukraine.
Thank you for the comment.
I
agree.
Yeah, I would love to add. I would expand military tech by hardware. I guess in Ukraine there is a huge base which is coming from, I guess, the Soviet Union, that it was pretty. There was a lot of knowledge in building hardware devices in different verticals. So I guess in Ukraine there are a bunch of smart people that are building hardware. Our fund doesn't invest in hardware, but there are like companies in modular construction, or just recent example, S-Lab, they are making an ecological package for different consumer packaged goods. And they won IT Arena startup competition. So I would suggest to look at the hardware component of the IT sector of Ukraine.
Yeah. Just a word on the S-Lab, just the outreach of those companies in the market. I mean, S-Lab, one of major S-Lab's clients is L'Oréal, for the packaging of their shampoo. So it's kind of there is a real visibility now, and they are really good in marketing. And I love this company.
Yeah, exactly. For instance, there is a startup which is called EFA. They have 500 global alumni. I guess for global invest in them, and they're making toothbrushes and such products which are recyclable, and as well as example of ecological, this sustainable goals products.
It's a good example of thinking out of the box. Actually, they created kind of small but blue ocean for this product. We brought them to the CES once. I don't remember, maybe in 2020, maybe in 2019. I don't remember, but they were presented at Ukrainian stand, and this startup received a huge number of positive feedback. Thank you, Oleg. Yeah, Charles, what is yours?
I think that we have seen that there are in fact many fields. We spoke about different type of verticals. Now that's the next question is how to invest in Ukrainian practice, because once we have all decided that it was good to invest in Ukraine, now we've got to find how. I mean, my first question as an investor is the HR risk, the talent risk. Because, of course, you can invest in companies in Delaware, you can invest in companies that are reported in Estonia, but what about some, and for having been there, since the full-scale invasion, visited different parts of Ukraine, I know that, when you say to people that when you're in Kyiv, you have traffic jam because people go to the office, and it's not like there are the bombs every day, but still, the risk, even in quiet parts of the country, is of the key people being drafted in the army. For me, that's one of the risks. What happens if your 3 lead devs are, called in the army next month, and how to mitigate that risk? I mean, I'd like to, to open the discussion on this topic with that simple question.
Ruslan?
Yeah, it's not like a question, it's a reality. Charles, for example, just last week I had 2 calls from my fintech companies that it's like a person who is architect in the programming was asked to join army, and they agreed to join army. So some processes stopped for some time, but in reality, people are eager to go to the army. It's not like people will refuse to go to the army and stay at the company and proceed with work. So it's not like a situation, it's real situation. And in this situation, probably company, startup need to cover this risk and understand how they will cover this risk. Because if programmer or June is taken to the army, it will not influence the project in a global way. But if really some senior programmer or architect will be under this risk of taken to army, but taken to army means that he will not go to the front line. In my situation, these people proceed with programming in the army, in some main office, for example, by helping other divisions to be more efficient and effective in their work in the army. So till now, it means that until we have war, the risk will exist. Even if you substitute one person by another person is also under this risk. And to de-risk this situation, we need to win the war. We need to take back people from the army for their positions in the companies. We need to provide for them some assistance to make them comfortable in the normal life, in normal work, and probably it also will cause new startups for Ukraine. So here are a lot of opportunities and a lot of risks, and it's reality. I don't know how to compensate it right now. Thank you.
Just to add, there is another one opportunity in terms of kind of protect your key staff from being drafted. There is a possibility through the DSCT tax regime there is a possibility to book your key staff up to 50% of your key staff. So what does it mean to book? It means that this person or these people from your company, they are considered as a key staff, and they are considered as a people which could not be drafted for some time because they do a lot of different tasks. They do a lot of crucial works in this company. But once again, to use this opportunity, this startup or this scale up should be a DSCT resident. So for now, as far as I know, it works. I don't think that every Ukrainian startup is suitable to apply for this regime, but as far as I know, IT companies, IT developers, most of them are DSCT residents, and they use this opportunity. But as my colleague said, unfortunately, during the war, we are Ukrainians, so we have to fight for our country. We have to protect it. Sorry for taking this time, but once again, I would like to ask my colleagues maybe to share the news, the most recent cases when you invest in a Ukrainian startup, or any of your partners, colleagues from abroad invest in Ukrainian startups, and what was the procedure, what was the algorithm of investing? Please share this knowledge.
Dima, is it a question to Canadian colleagues or to Ukrainian as well?
To you, Alexander, to my Ukrainian colleagues again.
Okay. We invested in several startups this autumn. I mean, Ukrainian startups. As I said, one is from Canada. They're based in Vancouver, probably. It's very important for us when we see that the startup already has revenue 1 million and more. I mean, ARR or yeah. And that has really a tech solution. So it's not like a restaurant or small or medium business. So these guys are doing AI for converting text to video for corporate education. And they're growing really fast. And we met them here in Silicon Valley and on tech startup, not startup grind, it was, I don't remember, nevertheless. So usually we are looking for the startups which already have enough revenue and they relocated to Canada or the US and already have clients in the US, and the revenue is growing fast. So this is what's important for us. And we also invested in Altris AI. It's a second opinion AI for ophthalmologists. It's a Ukrainian startup as well. And sometimes we can invest in the founders which are still based in Ukraine, like it was with Altris. Bavovna AI is a perfect case for us because it's a mixed team. So one American, one Ukrainian founder. And now we are investing in Zili. Zili is also Ukrainian startup based in Europe, but the company is incorporated in Delaware. It's very important for us to have Delaware incorporation, because even if the company is incorporated in Germany or Spain or Poland, it's very hard for us to invest because we need to make a lot of documents like power of attorney and then apostillation, then sending this power of attorney to Europe, and then our representative must come to German notary in the same day with other guys and do some procedures. So we don't like it, and usually we don't invest, even if we have a good opportunity. So, but as an example, we are now investing in Polish startup as well, who is incorporated in Delaware, because we understand this legislation and it's easy for us. So that's probably all. Sometimes, Dima, sometimes we invest in Ukrainian, in the startup, in which don't have 1 million in revenue. As an example, in this year we invested in startup. Oh my gosh, I forget the name. Zebra AI. You probably know
Zebra.
it.
Yeah, I know them. Yeah.
It was an early stage startup. I would say pure seed startup. They had just 100K in ARR, but it was a very, I would say, deep tech startup in terms of software. Yeah. And after us, in 2 months, Andreessen Horowitz invested in the same startup, Zebra. And we believe we understand something, but still it's very hard to invest in seed. And I believe the governments, Ukrainian government, Canadian government, really should help a lot when the startups are still in pre-seed stage, because it's not the US when you have a lot of business angels who have a lot of money and are ready to risk. And so I believe in this stage, the Ukrainian venture capital association, governments must help a lot to the startups. Thanks.
Thank you, Alexander. Thank you. Any other comments, guys? Okay. Just
maybe one comment is that I think that there is speaking to different business angels that I know around different countries, I think that there is a real story and a real scope for a kind of investment grouping of being, I'm not talking about the VC level, but I'm really talking about pre-seed and seed. The more I speak to different people in the world, the more more angels, the more I find that there is some real interest into gathering funds into an investment thesis, which is Ukraine and Ukraine reconstruction. That's the only thing I would add.
Yeah, just to add, we are discussing with our colleagues since the full-scale invasion started. We are discussing with our colleagues what is the best source of funding for Ukrainian startups right now, or how to attract investments. And we consider Ukrainian, believe it or not, but we consider Ukrainian business angels as the most reliable source of investments for Ukrainian startups being in Ukraine, located in Ukraine. However, we understand that for a short period of time, we can rely on this source, but for a long run, we should consider another alternative sources or some kind of joint sources. Unfortunately, there is no a reliable crowdfunding platform in Ukraine, unfortunately, because in this case, we could provide Ukrainian startups with a possibility to attract funding, to attract investments from a big number of small investors, with small checks. But anyway, we are relying on business angels, Ukrainian business angels, foreign business angels, because for example, European business angels, they sent me requests starting from summer 2022. They start sending me requests with almost the same message. Guys, we want to support you by investing even small checks into your startups. How to do this? And here we have some solutions, but unfortunately, these solutions are related to a big pile of different papers. Sorry.
Just one thing to add is that one specificity of Canada is that it's the second largest diaspora, Ukrainian diaspora in the world, and that should be. I think that CUCC is probably the best body to maybe do something around that, because it's like, I think 1.5 or 1.4 million Ukrainian descent people in Canada. So among that, you have several waves of immigration, of course, and you have people who've been in the country for decades and who have set up some businesses, who are who are angels and who are already investing, and they should be one of the key also the key targets for those kind of angel investments. And it's very specific to Canada. So I think there is a scope for development. Maybe I don't know whether Mark or Zenon want to say something about that.
Maybe Charles, I'll just say a couple things. There are actually businesses run by Ukrainian diaspora here in Canada that are involved in some startups. A lot of them you mentioned, somebody already mentioned the organization Horizon Capital. As you know, Lena Kosharny is a Canadian citizen and Canadian investor now in Ukraine. And I know that she spends quite a lot of time talking with some of the companies and people in diaspora, but certainly there are others that we can still reach out, and we do from time to time do that. So we'll continue on working on diaspora right now. Unfortunately, right now there's a huge fundraising all the time to support Ukraine. So because everybody wants to make sure Ukraine wins, because if Ukraine doesn't win, then everything totally changes. So a lot of people that we talk to, because I'm also involved in Ukrainian World Congress, and we have delivered quite a bit of assistance to Ukraine, to some of these diaspora people, some rich people that can invest in these businesses. They're sort of almost put that on hold for now and spending money on assisting Ukraine. So you have to take also that into account, and it makes sense. But there are people that will be definitely talking, and we are in contact with a lot of them.
Thank you, Zen, for this precision. So, I mean, the last topic was what do Canadian investors expect from Ukrainian counterparts going forward? Unless there is anything else to add to the topic about how to invest in Ukraine. I mean, I don't know whether anyone wants to add something, but we're kind of reaching 15 people, so now it's. I think everybody has had the chance
only professionals left. Only professionals.
Yeah, only the best.
So professionals stay here. Yeah, I guess we can hope to the last topic, to the last part of our discussion, and I believe our Canadian colleagues can elaborate some thoughts on this topic. What are the expectations?
Is there any Canadian colleague left? That's the question. I think that Nicolas Batty is the last to represent Canada.
Nicolas is here.
Yeah,
David is here.
I'm in my car, but I can listen to you.
Awesome.
So you are the voice of Canada at this stage. With
what a responsibility.
What a responsibility, especially for you.
So what are the expectations here? What are the expectations from point of view of Canadian investor? What are the expectations from Ukrainian startups, Ukrainian funds, Ukrainian associations as ours? What are the expectations?
I can maybe put my Canadian cap if you want. Nicolas, do you want to say? I don't want to force you to say anything. So, I mean, do you have anything to say on this point, or would you pass? Because I know that. Okay, good. No, because I know that Angel Quebec is not involved in Ukraine, so there is no real answer. I mean, just can say a word about as being a small business angel with a lot of interest into Ukraine for many reasons, and my humanitarian involvement, is one of the, is taking all my time now. But as an investor, I'm always interested into risk, but here we are adding risk to risk, and I think that the big question for me is the security of the investment. It's like, where do I invest? I mean, even the kind of legal environment that I don't masterize because I've not yet done anything in Ukraine, even though I'm mentoring some startups, but not as an investor. But it's really to be reinsured about. Even though I find, I mean, the evil is in the detail as always, and when you do a due diligence you get into, from a very good idea, you get to not a point of non-investment because there are plenty of hurdles that have not been passed. But of course, for me, it's this what you spoke about, Mitro, about the DRCT capacity to kind of protect the talent environment. For me, the big risk is what's happening if the company loses 50% of the people. And the second thing is the financial flows and all the risk inherent to the situation. And also there is an elephant in the room that has not been pronounced ever today, which is corruption. I mean, Ukraine has done huge efforts to mitigate that risk, and there's, of course, the situation has accelerated a lot in this field. But again, that's the global political environment and the corruption is also one of the questions. And not talking about corruption by the companies you invest in, but we've been talking about military tech. I mean, Miltech. I mean, clients of Miltech are governments. Governments is also the Ukraine government. So all that kind of I mean, this word has to be pronounced in such a. I mean, at least I would have pronounced it before 12:30, before we finish. So
I guess Mark has a question.
Mark wants to say something.
I just want to briefly say that from our perspective, what we are seeing is the lack of clear escalation path, if you will, like what to do when something goes wrong, who to call, who to ask questions. This is obviously why and beyond regular mechanisms of support, de-risking, security for the companies. But one of the other things that sort of comes to mind when we are talking with the investors from Canada and sort of what they're asking for is a bit of a lack of the corporate governance as the culture overall, and a bit of a lack of the tools which speak to the international standard to, let's say, due diligence. So these are, I think, the mechanism and very practical things that can be easily embedded. And I know there is a lot of initiatives right now. There is a lot of institutions that are being developed in the Ukrainian landscape that are bringing and upbringing the governance and bringing that governance into the startups from the day one, because it's very, very critical. Even the most recent OpenAI conversations that we've heard in the public, what happened there was a bit of a weird setup of how they've done it. I think one of the ways to make it very simple for the investors to invest is to really understand how decisions are being made, what's the escalation path, and what to do when something goes south. And if those answers can be answered, you give just that much more easier comfort for people to invest and look at that. So that's just our observations. And one note I would like to say, we do have a 12:30 meeting with our CUCC friends, so we will have to apologize probably 5 minutes before for just a quick break for the entire team. But just for my 2 cents, if I still have a mic, I just want to really thank you for a great opportunity or for the great discussion and a lot of insights that has been shared across the board. So on this, that would be my final words.
Thank you very much, Mark, and I appreciate the collaboration of CUCC, because you've been of great help since we met in Toronto to bring the nice panel that we have today. I mean, just the last word on what you just said, Mark. I mean, the quality of the people is always key, and all the. I mean, I met a lot of startuppers in Ukraine with a real good background. I mean, a lot of them have done, high-level studies. They've done studies in other countries, etc. So I find that the standard, what I discovered in the standard, and this is, reaching a bit what Marina Cortez said earlier about the quality of the CEO. I mean, I've been, there is, I mean, impressed and it was a happy discovery to see the level of the CEOs that I met in Ukraine. That's just my testimony. Mitro, do you want to start to wrap up?
Yeah, I think we should wrap up. I promise next time we're gonna shorter our events, but this time we would like to give more opportunity to know each other, to get acquainted with different actors, different stakeholders of Ukrainian and Canadian investment ecosystems. So as a wrapping up, first of all, I appreciated you come up here today You give me this time to meet with you, to speak with you, to share some of our activities, to share with you some of our thoughts. So I believe we should meet one more time at least, and I believe we should start at least start establishing kind of bridge between ecosystems. We should start exchanging information. We should start exchanging different opportunities. First of all, co-investments. We have a number of Ukrainian funds looking for co-investors. We have a number of Ukrainian funds looking for LPs. We have our initiative, One Person Pledge Ukraine, 1% investment pledge. So you can join this initiative. You can support Ukrainian startups. You can support Ukrainian businesses by joining this pledge. And of course, we are the association that unites a number of investment market stakeholders. So feel free to reach out to us and ask any questions regarding the possible cooperation, possible collaboration, and so on. That's it from my side. I deeply appreciate, and my personal gratitude to Charles for your support, for your role as a co-host. So the floor is yours.
Well, nothing much to add, Dmitry. It has been a real great pleasure to have you all here today. I think it's getting everyone very optimistic about the future of Ukraine globally. I mean, I just have 2 words to add, which is Slava Ukraini.
Героям слава.
Героям слава.
Героям слава.
Героям слава.
І я вдячний моїм українським колегам за те, що, не дивлячись на вечір, на альтернативні івенти, за те, що ви таки змогли приєднатися і поділитися думками, розказати, що таке українська екосистема. Я дуже вдячний. Once again, thank you all. I believe we have done, and that's it for now. I stop recording, and I wish you good luck and take care.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye-bye, everybody. Bye-bye.
Bye.